You never work with Sam Raimi.
Sam Raimi. Man, some of his films are absolutely incredible. The Evil Dead films, The Army of Darkness, Drag Me to Hell, the first two Spider-Man movies. These are all amazing films. They're fun, they can be violent, gory, over the top, but man, they're just prime entertainment. However, he's not perfect. He's responsible for two of my least favorite films. Spider-Man 3, it's dog shit. But even worse than that, he is the man that gave us Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Arguably Marvel's worst film. Now, this past weekend gave us the release of his first new film in almost 4 years. The film's called Send Help. So what do we have here? Where does this rank in terms of Raimi's list of films? Is it up there with some of the greats, or is this a bottom feeder? Well, before we answer that, let's talk a little bit about the plot for the film Send Help.
So, let's talk.
Here we find Linda Little. She's a bit of an oddball. She's a savant when it comes to numbers, but is incredibly socially awkward. Thinking she's supposed to get a promotion, her hopes are dashed when her boss dies and the company is taken over by his son, Bradley Preston. When she confronts Bradley about being passed over, he says, hey, you know what? Come to Singapore with me, negotiate the new deal, and maybe we'll rethink this. What she doesn't know is he has no plans on rethinking it. He's just going to use her. But as they're flying to Singapore, the plane gets in trouble and it crashes into the sea. And the only two survivors are Bradley and Linda. Now they are stranded on a tropical island. Lucky for Bradley, Linda's a bit of a survivalist and has knowledge that helps keep them alive. And as time goes on, we start learning that Linda may not be the mild-mannered person we think she is, and secrets about their pasts slowly surface and complicate their fragile alliance. So what works in this film? Well, this film is carried by the two leads, Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien, and let me tell you, they're both terrific. McAdams plays Linda. She brings a warmth, intensity, and a quiet menace that makes her character endlessly fascinating. You know, we first see her as this awkward, odd person. She's obsessed with survivalism. So this situation is almost like a dream come true to her. And watching her transform from this shy, nerdy girl to a badass, clearly becoming slightly unhinged as time goes by, it's tremendous. O'Brien, he's great as Bradley. Bradley's flawed, often frustrating character. He's a lot of bravado, a lot of tough guy attitude that slowly erodes under pressure. And the more he relies on Linda, the more his facade is shattered. And watching him realize he is helpless, but also begin to realize that maybe Linda is a bit unstable, well, again, masterclass in acting. Their back and forth is funny, tense, and surprisingly emotional, and watching their relationship evolve is the film's biggest hook. But let's talk about my boy Sam Raimi a little, shall we? His direction is a huge part of what makes Send Help so entertaining. His signature style, dynamic camera moves, playful horror flourishes, and a slightly twisted sense of humor infuse the film with personality. Even when the setting is just sand, sea, and two exhausted humans, Raimi finds inventive ways to keep the visuals lively and the tone deliciously off-kilter. It feels like the movie Castaway, filtered through a mischievous horror maestro who just discovered caffeine. And the final act goes full Raimi. Now, it might be a little too over the top for some, and you might be sitting back after watching it thinking, did that just happen? But honestly, that excess is part of the fun. And again, it's just vintage Raimi in that regards.
Okay, so what's the bad news?
What doesn't work in the film is It does drag a bit. I'd say not the end, which is strong, but, the plane crashes, they're on the island, and it kind of does just kind of linger there for a bit. Things happen, but not a ton at times. And I love this about Raimi, but some people may not. It does get a little over the top. So, again, your mileage may vary depending on how much chaos you like. But that being said, to me, Send Help is a very entertaining, stylish, and surprisingly funny survival thriller. It showcases two excellent lead performances and Raimi's unmistakable flair. It may wobble a little bit at times, but it never sinks, and it's the kind of film that makes you laugh, wince, and maybe rethink your next beach vacation. Put this one in the win column for Sam Raimi. I'm maybe not up there with some of his best, but it absolutely belongs in the conversation as one of his better films. And I also have to say, it's really nice to get a film in January this strong. Usually January is a bit of a dumping ground for poor films. So, if you're not going to see it in the theaters, see it on streaming, but definitely see it.
That was great. That was really well done.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for me this week. Tune in next week where I give you my thoughts and feelings on whatever I've seen. In the meantime, click that like button, subscribe, leave a comment or a question, share this video with friends and enemies alike, and as always, thank you for giving me your valuable time, and I'll see you next week. Take care.